Hi everyone, welcome back to No Sugar with Everything Krause. We have two things to say today. Well, three things to say, but two things to start off with.
Yeah.
One.
I can't even describe the panic that was going through my mind.
About a minute ago.
Because I was trying to show Kateri a video from Kylie Jenner, and I was like on Everything Krause's account, and she wasn't popping up.
It was like searching, and in my mind, I'm thinking Kylie deleted her Instagram. And in Isabel's mind, she's like, did Kylie Jenner block us? But it was really weird because then we went to every other account that we have.
Yeah, and she was popping up. So I was like, wait.
Like, literally, we would type in Kylie Jenner, hit search, and know all these, like, fan accounts popped up.
Yeah, and I literally thought for a second, like, maybe one of our viral reels caught her attention and she disagreed and blocked.
And blocked us.
Like, maybe
I don't
she
know.
thinks the sun isn't good for you and hit block, and it kind of broke my heart, but then at the same time, when I still believed that she had blocked us, I was like, I don't need you, bitch. I was like, we're gonna be bigger than you one day, bitch.
She doesn't block us that we know of.
No, because Kateri sent a reel from No Sugar of hers to Everything Krause, and we could access it and view it and
follow her. So
we did that.
It was just like a classic glitch in the Matrix and Instagram Matrix. And then the second thing that we want to say before we get into the actual topic is the big elephant in the room, which is obviously Election Day. It is November 5th, Election Day, Tuesday. Happens to be on No Sugar Tuesday. Seems like very two important things. Listening to our episode, going out and voting, kind of go
right up there with each other.
They really go hand in hand. But yeah, I feel like I've been waiting for this day. I mean, this is pre-recorded, but like I've been waiting for this day for what feels like forever.
Mm-hmm. No, literally. It just feels like the buzz around the campaigns and how much it really does pick up, especially as it gets closer to Election Day. Like, we have been seeing the campaign trails for both candidates for over a year now.
Literally.
And for it to be really, like right now when we're recording, 5 days out, but when you guys will hear this, Election Day, like that's crazy. The time has finally come to get out and vote, which is really what we want to say to you guys today. It is your moral duty as a citizen of the United States of America to vote. Your vote matters. It is a voice in the say of who runs our country for the next 4 years. I don't care who you vote for, but you absolutely need to be voting. It is your moral duty as an American citizen, and we cannot get that point across more. Like, if you don't know who to vote for, that's not an excuse. I don't know.
No, do a quick little research and go vote because it's like your last day to do it. I feel like people think, like you said, every single vote does matter, and you're like, oh, so many people are voting. Like, what's one vote gonna do? But as we were talking about with like our family, like the last election was like thousands of votes that Donald Trump lost by. So if you think about that, like that's not that many people.
No.
So every vote truly does matter. And like Isabel said, do your research and figure out who you want to vote for. But going out and voting is very important. And I think to think that your vote doesn't matter is a very immature way of looking at it. And yeah, it's really, really important. I think as we get older, the more so we like realize that, of course. But it really is like we're a citizen of the United States of America. Like it is our job. We don't have many things I feel like that you have to do as a citizen, but this is one of those things that truly every citizen of the United States of America should be doing.
And you should be happy to do it. This is our democracy. This is our chance to get a say in who governs our country. Like if you are upset about the decisions being made but didn't vote in the last election, you didn't even try to take the action to make change in the way that you want it to be going. So I don't want to hear it if you didn't vote, because voting is the one thing that they give us in our country to really like make change, whatever that change be that you want to do.
It is really a prideful moment as well. I don't know, like every time I vote, I do, even when it's something not as big as the presidential election and I go and vote, I just feel, I don't know, I leave feeling like, okay, I'm happy I did what my duty, I did what I was supposed to do. And so it's a really good feeling as well. It's not like this negative thing. Obviously, I don't know, something about this election too, and maybe it's just because social media has really grown over the past 4 years, but the way that the campaigning is happening right now, and like, you know, people are going on podcasts, there is so much to do with like influencers. It's just kind of almost like a crazy election. I feel like that's why it feels more like, oh, I've been like waiting for this day because of all of this different type of campaigning that they didn't do 10 years ago. Like it's totally different. Podcasts, who knew that presidential candidates would be on podcasts.
No, it's so true.
Like Joe Rogan and Call Her Daddy, you're telling me those are the podcasts, right? Like, I mean, there's obviously more podcasts that are in the mix that they've been on, but like hearing that, oh, like we're podcasters.
Yeah,
like imagine literally having a presidential candidate on this.
That's crazy.
It's crazy just to think about. These are the platforms that, and of course, because influencers are the easiest way to market now. But
if that doesn't show you how influential social media and this industry has become, that
so crazy.
Campaigns are now moving, instead of going to a media outlet, they are moving literally to podcasters.
Yeah, because it's
that's how many views
how do we get to younger people? Like, I don't watch the news. Like, the only time I see it is when my dad has it on the TV.
I hate the news.
So I'm not watching it. I'm not going to see all these little interviews that they do that are on Fox News, CNN, on these things. Like, I'm going to see it on a podcast. I'm going to watch it on a podcast or on YouTube. So it's just kind of wild. I don't know. That's what's also, I feel like, making it a little bit more exciting too. Is I don't know. I'm very, very excited. I literally took off from teaching the 7 a.m. class on Wednesday because I did not want to feel like I needed to go to bed. I have to wake up at like 5:30 those days. So I was like, I don't, and we might go to bed without having an answer, but I was like, I do not want to be like so anxious about going to sleep when I just want to fully watch it and like sit on the couch with our family, and I don't know, like I don't want to really move.
I also just want to urge you to really dig deep and really think about who you are voting for. You are allowed to vote for whoever you want. That is the beauty of our country. But think beyond these surface level campaigns that they are promoting, these surface level things that they are saying they are going to change, because I really do feel like this particular election, it goes far deeper than our minds can even imagine, and how we vote in this election is really going to change our lives beyond those surface level reasons, beyond the LGBTQ rights, beyond the women's rights, beyond the gas laws, beyond everything. It is so much deeper than that. It is really, I just don't even know how to express it. Like, to me, this election is really like,
it's crucial.
It's crucial
for our country.
It's
really
more
is.
life-changing than even just thinking about the issues that are concerning me. I'm almost putting like my top priority issues aside and thinking like, okay, like what is morally the right person to vote for here? What is going on in our country? Why have we been going down this path? What is going on, and what is the change that needs to be made at the root? Because we cannot better any of those issues until the root problem is really fixed.
Yeah. Just like the last thing on that. I think that is important to say because, I don't know, I'm not very, like, I used to not be a very political person, so I didn't pay attention to a lot of like policies and like what that all meant. And I feel like now more than ever, it's so important to pay attention to the, like you said, the deeper policies, the actual things, like the root problem, the corruption that's happening, like looking past all these, like, they're not surface level issues, but that's what's rising to the top that people are focusing more on. There's all these like little things that, sure, anyone can like say one thing, but what's going to really make our country better? And that's the stuff that's more so at the bottom. That's kind of, you have to go to like different news outlets or do your own personal research to really figure out what is even happening. And people don't always want to do that. They don't want to have to like go out and find information on their own because it's harder, but there's people talking about every little thing. Like you could find someone talking about it and explain it in layman's terms, because the political terms go kind of in one ear and out the other for me as well. So you just have to find someone that breaks each thing down, maybe find someone who's unbiased as well and kind of breaks down like everything that's happening, not just these bigger ones that we see mostly on like the commercials or we just hear about more often. But we just wanted to start with that because obviously election, it's very, very important. It is the presidential election. Literally, like, it's not a once in a lifetime thing because it happens every 4 years, but I feel like this is really a really, really important election, and I think everyone feels the weight of that.
For me personally, being completely honest, like, this election is between voting for good or evil. And obviously I'm voting for what I find to be the good side, and that is why it's so important. That's what I mean when I'm saying deeper. It is not, that's why I'm calling that stuff surface level, because that's not good versus evil. That's policies that you're in favor of. There's different policies I'm in favor of than, of course, all of you guys. That's why we vote differently. But at the end of the day, what is morally good and what is the demonic culture that is coming out? Because that is what I feel in my heart. I feel our world is moving towards a very demonic route. I think that the way that they mocked the Passover in the Paris Olympics, like, that to me is such a sign as a Catholic of like, whoa, what is going on in our world? Like, what are they doing to our culture? What are they doing to our faith? And what are they doing to this image and this way of living that so many people admire? And why are they removing it from our life? Like, it's just demonic. It's the devil's work to me, and that is why it is so important to vote. You may think other things are the devil's work, and that is completely okay. That's why I say it is your opportunity to vote however you want. But for me, it is a decision between good versus evil. Mm-hmm. Okay, enough of the election talk. I think we got our point across that it is extremely important to voice your opinion. So make sure you go do that today on election day. But let's get into today's episode.
Yes. So Isabel and I, as you guys know, are very faith-filled people. We are Catholics, and Isabel especially talks about a lot, like her prayer with God and praying. And I always kind of say I take Isabel as my inspiration. Like, she is someone I look up to in terms of just her prayer with God, and I think your conversations that you have. Mm-hmm. So I'm always kind of influenced by her and the way you do it in a good way. Like, I kind of just take what, she goes on long walks and comes home and brings these realizations and these revelations that she has about her prayer and like what she kind of tapped into, and it influences me to go kind of do the same thing and tap like a little bit deeper. So recently I feel like when I go to pray, and I'm saying this as maybe other people feel this way, when I go to pray and I'm on my walk alone, and I feel like I recently have always just been starting with like, okay, I know I haven't done this in a while, like, let me just like start with what's on my mind. And I feel like I'm always almost reaching for maybe something that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, well, what can I bring up that I've been anxious about or that I'm worried about? And just like problems, like what's an obstacle in my way right now? What's going wrong? And then I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I'm almost feel like I'm reaching for negativity when maybe nothing actually that negative, or something that's like weighing on my mind isn't weighing as much as I'm making it seem.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to kind of flip that script a little bit, and we'll go back and forth with this a lot, but the other day I went on a walk and I was praying, and I was like, it doesn't have to be all this bad things. Like, you might not have anything bad that feels like it's going on in your life, or like you already talked about it and you don't have anything else to say right now. Why don't you talk to God about what you do want for X, Y, and Z? Or why don't you talk to God just about your day? And I feel like you always tell me to do that. And it was like the first time in a while when I got back from that walk and I was done with that prayer that I felt like really, really whole almost. And I felt really, one, just like proud of myself, but also really proud of the conversation that I did have. And I don't know, it opened up like a whole new mindset
I just feel like
for
it
me.
showed you what prayer can also be. Mm-hmm. Like, it took away that feeling of being put in a box of what prayer is supposed to be, and maybe showed you like, this is God. This is what God is here for. The conversations of the good and the bad, to be my friend. I feel like it painted it in a perspective of like, God is my friend. Yeah. And I just updated him.
No, and that's exactly what it was. Like, I was obviously talking a lot about, like where I want to go in my fitness career and where I want to take it personal training wise, all this little stuff. So we're very good at having conversations. I mean, we have a podcast. Like, I'm really good at talking to people. So I kind of took it like it was almost like you said, I was updating God on everything that had just happened. And then like the stuff I was preparing for this upcoming week, all these little different things. And it was really just like an update and me talking about myself and like what I wanted from it, or maybe like what I didn't know that I wanted, or like, okay, maybe I'm still feeling a little confused here. Like, I still need a little more direction, and I need to figure out what it is that I'm actually like reaching towards. So like, help me find that goal, like enlighten my mind with what you want that goal to like come to mind almost. Yeah. So you're right. It was just straight up like an update.
And that's beautiful progress, because I feel like the reason we tend to go to God, I almost think, with negative conversations is because we learn and we are taught and we believe that God is the peace that brings us healing in all of those thoughts, that removes the anxieties and the worries. And I know I put myself in a box sometimes where I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to tell God all my worries. But we shouldn't only go to God when we feel we need him. We should go to God when we're in the best moments too, when we're happy, when we're sad, when we're joyous, when we're laughing. Every moment of our life should have God within it. And I feel like when you realize that it doesn't just need to be a negative conversation, and like allow your mind to be open to the thought of like, let me just tell God about myself. Like, that is the point of God, is to be a friend, is to know you. And sometimes I think we tell him about all of our problems so much that I'm like, man, did I ever like just tell you about me? Like I remember the first time that I really had like a deep conversation with God, and it's hard because sometimes I'll go through a season of angst and worry, so that a lot of my prayers are normally heavy things like that. And then when I come back to that first prayer, when I'm feeling that stress removed, I'll be like, shit, I don't know what to pray about.
Yeah.
Like I'll do the same thing as you. And it was that first moment when I had a conversation with him, and I was like, let me just tell you about what I have on my day. Like, what's on my plate today? Like, do you want to know about my day? I feel like you do. I know you know it already, but like, let me tell you what I'm excited about. Let me tell you how I feel about going out to the bars tonight. Let me tell you about this boy that's Snapchatting me or texting me. Like, just updating him and really making him a friend is such a beautiful part of our relationship that I feel like we don't often realize could be there. Like, he's not just your anxiety relief, your stress relief, your guide. He's also a best friend.
I feel like it also, when you build that relationship, or you work on that relationship, it makes you feel more comfortable to be really honest in those moments. It would be like if you had a friendship in person. If you were talking to someone and you only shared surface level things, or you barely connected with them, barely texted, called them, and then all of a sudden you're with them in person, you're not going to spew out everything you're feeling, what's on your mind, what's going on in your life, your anxieties, your worries, what makes you happy, what you're excited for. Like, you're not going to tell them all that information, because they're like an acquaintance at that point. So it almost builds that trust and comfort to be able to do it and be really honest in those moments. I also think another thing, when I only go or pray and like focus when I'm feeling negative or feeling like I just need like a little more guidance, it makes you feel really guilty. And so, because I know that I'm only going during quote unquote the bad, and then when it comes time for the good, you hear people say all the time, like, do you only ask God for help like when you need it, or like do you talk to him outside of the times of need too? And when I'm only going for the bad, or I'm only searching for the bad, it makes me feel like guilty in a way, not in like a God makes you feel guilty, but of like a,
deep down that you aren't in touch with him as you should be.
And I want to be.
Yeah,
so it's more so me putting also like that guilt on myself of like, I don't know why I do that, because I do want more and I do want to deepen that connection. And it's not going to be perfect. What's funny is like this week, I feel like I haven't been praying as much really. I don't know if I've gotten like a really good prayer in that I felt really good about. And it doesn't always have to be like an hour-long prayer, but this week I felt a lot more, just like little anxieties come up, almost feeling overwhelmed. And sometimes I get in that like not cycle, but I will get these like overwhelmed feelings where I feel almost super sad, and like I'm not like depressed, I don't know why I'm feeling.
What was that?
Your picture.
Oh my god!
That could have killed someone. Okay,
holy shit!
We have mixed tiles flying all over the room. Sponsor us, mixed tiles. Anyway, what was I saying?
You feel really sad.
But this is making me sound like I live in this like sadness.
No, but you lack the presence of God.
And like I'll literally go to bed and I'll be on the phone with Tyler and I'm like, I don't know why, I'm literally feeling sad right now. And even just talking right now with you, I'm like, it really the missing piece has been the prayer this week. It has been, because the week before I was feeling super good, and I was having every single time I walked to the studio to teach, or I went on a walk alone, it didn't matter how long it was, I made sure to pray, or at least get like a gratitude rampage in where I just went off about everything I was grateful for. And I felt like I felt more productive, I felt more clear. Like, that's what that feeling is, when it's almost uncertainty in my mind of feeling overwhelmed, my brain's going a million different ways. Like, literally every night this week I was trying to read the 10 pages. When I tell you, and I'm going to admit to this, I read those 10 pages, I think I maybe consumed 2% of what I read every night, because I would read a page and be like, dude, your mind was literally all over the place. Like, you were not actually reading, you were thinking about something else and trying to read. Why would you consume anything? So it's just, I don't know, like, I feel like I literally just experienced two very contrasting feelings in 2 weeks. And
that's great. Because now it takes lack of communication with him to enforce your why on why communication with him is so important.
Definitely.
Like, that showed you what a week in the life without God would be like. And it wasn't better. It wasn't good. And if anything, that pushes you to be like, next week I need to prioritize it. Like, it helps your mind be like, no, that is a priority.
Yeah.
I also just think that goes to show you what prayer, like how powerful prayer really is, because it's not that you, almost for me, what prayer is it's not that I'm just telling him everything and then I can stop thinking about it. It's that when you tell God what's on your mind, when you walk him through your day, it's almost like we view him as our father. God is our father. And it's like when I tell my father what's on my mind and what I'm doing today, I trust that he is guiding me throughout that day and is with me throughout that day. And of course I know he's with me always, but when I'm in communication with him, that reminder, whether or not I realize it, is always in the back of my mind, that I just like go through that day with ease because I talk to God. Oh, I talked to God today. I know he knows what I'm going. I know he knows I'm going into this exam. I know he knows I'm nervous for the party tonight. And just having that feeling of like, well, he knows, so I know that he is there with me and guiding me and is going to be next to me the whole way. I just feel like it calms our mind and allows you to put it behind you almost. Like, I almost look at prayer as a form of like decluttering the mind, and I don't mean that in like a bad way where like I use God to declutter, but once I tell him something, I told him and I can trust in him and that fully surrender it to him and I can put it behind me. And when I don't put it behind me, I know I didn't fully surrender it to him. That's what that signifies to me.
Yeah.
So I just feel like that's probably why you felt like you couldn't even focus, because it's like, well, did you even walk through your thoughts with God? Like, if you have that many thoughts, just walk them through with God and then leave them behind you.
Yeah, it was definitely like I was holding on to, I feel like, a lot in my mind, but then when it would come time to like say it, or almost like I just didn't have anything to say at the same time, you know, like, and not like in the prayer, it was like for when I was talking to Tyler, he's like, well, like, what's on your mind? And I just didn't even have like words to compile of like what exactly was on my mind, because there wasn't one thing. It was just like a buildup of things and emotions, and a lot of it had to just do with me, and it was like no one else's actions. It was literally my own actions, and, you know, me looking inward of myself, like, I'm responsible for X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm taking responsibility for my own anxieties that I'm feeling right now are probably self-induced.
Yeah.
You know, and like that feeling of being overwhelmed, like, well, what could you have done to stop this feeling? So,
well, and I feel like sometimes when we don't have the words, we resist prayer. I know for me, I do that because I get so caught up in like, well, I don't even know how to like think through these thoughts to talk them out to God. And I think the most important thing to recognize is that God is all knowing. He knows every thought going through your mind, and just approaching conversation with him in an open and honest way and understanding that like I can tell God anything has really changed my perspective on like when I resist praying because I don't want to work through the thoughts. Like, instead of not talking to him about it, I'll go to God and I'll be like, God, I literally don't want to pray to you right now because I don't know how to vocalize these thoughts. Like, I just am like, whatever is on your mind, just say it. He already knows it. So I've recognized like, God, I didn't pray to you this week. I feel really guilty about not praying to you because I want to pray to you, and I always say I want to pray to you, but I don't. Like, literally being so bluntly honest and sharing every single thought on your mind, because God is always going to forgive you. He's never going to judge you. That is his unconditional love. That is the power of God. That is why he is so amazing and all loving. So I just feel like when you take the weight off yourself of like having to have the perfect words to say to God, it's like, sometimes you can just tell God, like, God, I don't know what the heck to say. I need you to lead me here. And just like let the silence go. Like, sometimes I'll start my walk and I'll say that to him, and I'll like walk for 5 minutes, and then I'll have a thought pop up. And I'm like, oh, that was God. Okay, God, this is what I'm going to talk about now. And then that will spiral into so many different thoughts, and I'll uncover the thoughts that I wanted to share by him bringing up other things in my mind. Like, sometimes you just need his guidance to really share it. But I took the weight off a lot of my prayer by telling him, like, yeah, I feel guilty this week. I haven't prayed to you in a week. I feel like a terrible follower of yours. Right now, I feel like I haven't been acting in accordance with you. Instead of, I just feel like it helps you, like, clear your chest.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, instead of carrying the weight inside, like, I remember I came home and I was like, I feel like I'm, like, not close to God anymore. Like, that's what I said to you. I literally went on my prayer the next day, and I, like, my walk in prayer the next day, and I told God, and I was like, I honestly don't feel like I'm close to you right now, God. I know that's my fault, but I just need to tell you that's what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, and just,
I don't know. I feel like I'm being repetitive, but
I also do think that even if it's not in that moment, like, say you don't have an hour to walk and pray, and you just for those 5 minutes, the only thing you say is like, I am feeling this way, but I don't have the words to express it any further than other than like, I know that this is what is going on in my mind. This is like what I'm feeling. and let it marinate there. Like, let it keep coming back to that almost. Like, keep telling God, like, I'm still, like, just enlighten my mind a little bit. Help me work through these feelings and emotion. Because some things will be bigger issues that, like, you can't work through in one prayer, that are going to take, like, a little bit more than just that one, like, therapy session with God, I like to think of it. But, so start there and, like, allow it to just come to fruition however it does, you know, like, just, I don't know, like, I feel sometimes like it can't happen really quick all the time, and that's totally okay. Something may weigh on your heart a little bit longer, but eventually, like, if you get comfortable kind of going back to God with that and being able to be like, I don't know what to say, and I'm just letting you know that, like, I literally don't know what to say. I don't know how to express these feelings and emotions that I'm feeling in a clear and concise manner, and ask him to enlighten your mind on how to do that, and, like, almost organize it in your brain a little bit more. Eventually, like, it will come out, and you will feel that sense of, like, release with it almost. And I feel like that's also why God is there, is to be like that shoulder to cry on and lean on, and he's also going to in turn, like, constantly give you thoughts, give you actions, things that are going to push you to get rid of, like, that negative feeling, or to push you to take the next step that you need to take. Like, he's there as the shoulder to cry on, but also to kind of be like the little kick. He
is our father. What do we do when we go to our parents? We go to them for advice. Go to God for advice. I like what you just said. God, enlighten. Like, if you don't know what to say, God, enlighten my mind. God, give me the words to articulate these thoughts, because right now I don't have them. Please help me speak these out so I can remove them from my chest and give them all to you.
Yeah, that's something I've been saying a little bit more, is to kind of, like, enlighten my mind and give me the words that I am so, like, desperately searching for. Not even just, like, in my prayer, but also, like, in relationships with people. I always say to Isabel, like, sometimes I just, like, don't think I'm articulating what I'm thinking in the same way, or what I'm feeling. Like, it doesn't come out. What I'm thinking isn't coming out the right way. So recently I've been saying to God, like, I want to feel more confident in what I'm saying, so that communication isn't, you know, a barrier between me and someone else. I'm able to have open communication with all people, and I don't have to hesitate on what I have to say, because I know that you're giving me the ability to speak those words, and, like, to put whatever I'm feeling into words and actually express them in a way that matches what I'm feeling, because that can be really hard to do. Like, I'm sure a lot of people express that. You say one thing and you're like, well, that's not what I meant.
Even, like, on this podcast, sometimes we speak and I'm like, I don't know if I got across, like, what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and, like, we say things and it's just, like, it sounds like word vomit, and then in the end you're like, did I even express actually what I was feeling? Because it's hard. It's like, in the moment you're just, like, talking, and I think that can be really hard when you're just talking to someone of, like, did they pick up what I was putting down? Because I don't know if I expressed it right, too. Like, it's not only their job to understand what you're saying, and I think I have personally been really leaning on God for that, because that's just one thing I want to get better at.
I'm also realizing that we have all these thoughts and I can articulate them so well until the pressure's on where I have to share them. Until it's on when I have to share them on the podcast. Now all of a sudden I don't know how to communicate it to you. Until the pressure's on when I'm in the prayer and now I need to tell God and I don't know how to communicate it to God. And I think the way to almost approach it with prayer is, like, you are not, sometimes I think, like, yes, I am. I always believe I'm talking to God, but I also just believe that he is listening. So I almost, like, take it as I'm talking. I never think I'm talking to myself, but, like, what would be the words I would say if I were just talking to myself right now? It doesn't need to be a perfect sentence. It can be a fragment. It can be a thought. It can be a word. What am I feeling? What is coming to mind? And when I just approach it as that and take the pressure off of, like, I need to articulate this thought to God so perfectly so he understands, I'll start with a word. I'll be like, I'm angry. Yeah. All right. Well, why am I angry? Well, my mom just bothered me. Okay. Like, I take it in bits and pieces and walk through like, almost how you walk through your thoughts in your mind. It's how I walk through God. Like, how I walk God through my thoughts. So I just feel like, because that's always, like, what happens to me. It's like, I come on, and then when it's time to get in front of the mic, I'm like, shit, what am I saying?
What do I say? Like, when it's really time, or, like, the 7,000 times I have a conversation in my mind, and then I go to have the conversation, and everything disappears. My brain is empty. I'm literally blank.
Like, you don't need to say the perfect words to God. You can say the sentence 5 times over again until you feel it's the right way that you were feeling. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I'll be like, I'll say it, and then I'll be like, I don't really think that's what I feel, though. Like, what's the deeper issue here? Like, you know what I mean? I allow myself to make those mistakes. So I had a really interesting conversation with my friends Noah and Luke about prayer, in a sense of, my one friend he kept saying to me, he could not discern between whether he was hearing his voice or, like, he was like, I can't tell if it's my voice or if it's your voice, God. And I thought that was super interesting, because I was like, sometimes I feel that too, I think, where I'm like, is this my thought? Like, did I just give myself that answer? Or I always believe it's God giving me the words to speak so that it is his answer. But what we ultimately all discussed, and like the big realization that they brought to my attention, was a lot of the times we go to God and pray seeking an answer we already want. So if I am, down bad with a boy, I'm upset. I'm upset he hasn't answered me, or it's not going the way I want. I'll go to God and I'll pray about that guy, but really I'm seeking for him to be like, God, give me the answer that it's him. Like, God, please let him text me.
Yeah.
Like, I want him to give me that answer. And I think we often catch ourselves, we probably don't catch it, but we approach God looking for an answer, which removes his voice, because if we're looking for what we want to hear, we're not going to hear him. And that's why sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, I don't hear God in my life. God doesn't answer my prayers. Well, did you open your ears to hear him? And I think a better way to approach prayer, now there is no perfect way, you approach it however you feel best, but what I realized is, go to God with your thoughts and your concerns, like, yeah, God, this is what I'm feeling about this guy in my life. I'm using that as an example just because I feel like it's so relatable and like surface level. I'm feeling this about a guy in my life, instead of being like, please have him text me, be like, I'm gonna trust you on this. Like, I don't know what to think about it. I don't know what this means, and I just wanted to tell you about it because it's been weighing on my mind, but I really don't know what the answer is here, and I just want you to guide me through this. Please help me through this process. Instead of like,
whatever that answer
is. And I think it ultimately leads to just being like, just surrendering to him is ultimately what that is. Because when we go in seeking an answer, we still have our plan in mind, is what I realized. And I struggle with that because a lot of times I'll catch myself during a prayer and I'll be wanting him to answer in a certain way. And then I realize, like, I need to be honest with him, and I'm like, oh God, I just realized, like, I want you to answer in that way. Like, I want this plan so badly for me. Like, I'm trying to take control here. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Essentially what I'm saying here is, go to God for guidance, not for an answer. He will guide you through the situation, but don't go for the answer that you are looking for, because you will never hear his voice.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to accept if the answer is not something that you want it to be. Like, you have to be willing to accept that answer for what it is, because...
New segment of the episode right here, because I got thoughts on this.
Oh, here she is. Meanwhile, I'm literally like... I need to take my creatine, I need to take my sea malts, I need to take my probiotic
It's been a long day. I'm also holding my phone just because I have some
I didn't have all my things today, did you hear?
No. Please, let me get back to it.
Day 3 creatine. Day 4.
I just had some thoughts in my mind today when I was thinking about this episode, and I didn't want to lose them, and I wanted to share them with you, so I apologize if they come out random. But what I really want to shift into here is surrendering to God, because I know that we were just talking about prayer, and this episode really was supposed to be focused on, like, praying with him, but I realized that the entire point of your relationship with God is to surrender to him. And when you are 100% surrendered to him, you can truly be a follower of his and act in accordance with how he would want you to act. And that's really, like, what we're all working towards. Like, when I say I'm growing in my relationship with God, I'm just growing to try and be fully immersed and surrendered to him. Like, there's never I'm not fully surrendered right now, and there's always a point that I'm trying to get to, and every time I bring up a problem or an anxiety, it's because I'm not surrendered. Like, that's literally what it is, because what I mean by being surrendered is fully trusting in him. Like, that anxiety's in my mind, but it's not making me anxious because I just trust in God. It's an inherent belief that life is okay and that everything will work out because God has you and God is doing everything for you, not against you. Something I particularly struggle with is the fact that I'm not fully surrendered to God. Like, I get mad at myself because I know that God's plan is the best way. I know that he is all powerful. I know that he loves me so much and he's doing everything for me. I know that. But then why do I still get these worries? Like, I get mad at myself and I'm like, why are you worrying about it? Like, do you not know that? Did you not hear what you said? Do you not have faith? Because it is a complete contradiction to what I've been saying all this time. So it's like, it just gets in my head, and I've realized that I need to have grace for myself. I am human, and that is the beauty of God, is that he is unconditionally loving and all forgiving, and he will always love you. He will always be there, no matter how far you drift, no matter how much you start taking life into your own hands and forget that it's his plan. He will still always love you and accept you with grace. God's grace is unbelievable. I wish I could have the grace of his.
Well, I think that you can't, 'cause
you
you're
can't.
not God. But I think it's if you looked at that as the same as like how we always talk about growth. It's not linear. It's not a straight line. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have moments where you need to catch yourself in a negative moment of like, I haven't done anything. I'm falling backwards again. I'm falling back into negative old habits. It's the same thing with your relationship with God of I'm not surrendering all of a sudden. All of a sudden I am worrying more. I'm feeling more stressed out. I'm trying to control everything in my life when I can't control everything because God's in control of everything. It's kind of like the same thing. And like you said, give yourself the grace like you would in your progress in the gym. Give yourself the same grace that you would in your relationship with God and like surrendering that. Because also surrendering it's complicated too. It's not like the easiest thing to do. You might say like, yes, God, I'm surrendering this to you, but still in the back of your mind, you're maybe hoping that it goes a certain way.
Yeah.
And you're hoping for like the better outcome. And that is not fully surrendering. Like if there's a situation that's happening, to be fully surrendered is to really, really, truly be okay with whatever the outcome is. And knowing that if it's the worst, if it's a bad outcome, God's going to give you the strength to get through it. And if it's a really good outcome, it's because that was meant to happen in your life. And God placed that there for a reason. And he gave you other lessons to learn. Like that surrendering lesson. It's hard to surrender when, for example, if someone you know has cancer and they're dying, like you have to surrender the fact that they could die. You have to surrender and be like, if that is your plan, I will be okay and I'll be stronger for it. And as like morbid as that sound, it's like that really is what surrendering is being okay with any outcome that comes.
Well, and it's in the Bible, it's super interesting, and this is what I struggle with, but it's not only being okay with God's outcome, it's rejoicing in it as well. He tells us so often, rejoice in my plans for you. And I think that's where it's really important, is because if we are just merely okay with it, I think that's where we lose that lack of like relationship with him, because maybe we often build resentment, but he wants us to rejoice in it, because we should be rejoicing in the fact that it went his way, because his way is the best way. And I know that's so hard to view in a situation like cancer, like how could her dying be the best way? But we must rejoice in it, because when we rejoice in it, it shows our inherent trust. I'm rejoicing, God, because I know this was you. And I also want to say something that's really helped me to surrender to God more through prayer is I just realized, like, why am I struggling? I like debriefed it with him one day, and I was like, why am I struggling to, for example, with a boy? I'll actually be very vulnerable right here and share like an example. One of the biggest fears I think in my life, which I shared with you, is finding a partner that I've always envisioned myself with, I've always dreamed of being with, like finding that husband that really does check every box for me. That is the guy that I've just like always wanted. And it sounds funny, but I do think I'm very different. And a lot of the guys that I come across, they just like don't meet the cut for me. Like I genuinely am not interested in them, and it's going to take a very rare human being to be my partner. And I know that, and sometimes I just get scared, and in my head like, oh my God, like is a husband not in God's plan for me? Like that's the one thing I feel I really want. Put everything, Krause, put no sugar, put success, put being fit and healthy and pretty aside. What do I truly want at the end of the day? It's a beautiful family and a beautiful husband to grow that family with. And I realized like the reason that I'm not surrendering that to God is because, have I ever told God I wanted that? Like, have I ever told him like, yeah, obviously I want a husband, God, but have I ever told him how much it meant to me? Have I ever told him that I'm so scared that it's not his plan for me? Like, was I ever that honest with him? And when I got really honest with him and told him like, this is what I want, God. And I almost think telling God what you want allows you to surrender more, because it's like, I told you what I want, God. And if it doesn't happen, I know it is not your plan, but I told you. So I know that you know what I want in my life, and you have my best interest in heart. And if what I want is your plan, then you will make it happen for me. And it almost just allowed me to like be okay with whatever his plan was, because I was like, just what I just said, like, you are so powerful. I know that you have heard me. I know that you listen to me. And I know that you were doing everything for me. And I told you what I want, and I trust in you to give me what I want. But I know if you do not give it to me, it is your plan. And I think that's ultimately what we need to do in surrendering, is you're allowed to ask for things from God, but you can't get mad at him when he doesn't give them to you. The whole point of surrendering is to ask him and being okay if it doesn't go that way anyway. Like, ultimately, we always need to want God's plan.
And, like, why would we want something that it isn't meant for us, right? Like, if God isn't giving you it, then it's clearly not meant for you, and it's not a part of your plan and his plan for us. So it's like, well, then I don't want it anyway. It might sting in the moment, might take a little bit to get over, depending on what it is, but being okay with that, because you know what, in 10 years you'll realize, like, whew, thank God that didn't happen. Like, literally, thank you, God, because now I see in hindsight that was not meant for me. But in the moment, you think that it is like the perfect thing, and you're like, how could you strip that away from me or not give me what it is, because I feel like I deserve that. And it's like, well, you know, give it a couple years, and then maybe you'll realize, or give it a month and then you'll realize. So I feel like that's it, you know, like how you can kind of spin it to be okay with that.
I also realized that in surrendering to God, a true surrendership, like what I just said, I feel like we're repeating ourselves, but is being okay with God's plan. And I recognized that when I was praying and asking for that future, I just realized to God, like, God, I'm scared to tell you to shut any door that's not for me, because I'm scared you're going to shut that door on me getting married one day. Like, what if that's not your plan for me? Like, I'm scared to tell you that I want your plan, because I don't want that. Like, and I just feel like being that honest with him. Like, I was praying with him in the car the other day, and I had this conversation with a friend, and the friend told me, like, we need to, like, he went about his prayer by telling God, like, God, if it's not my plan, shut the door. Like, if it is not meant for me, please shut the door. And I felt so much resistance in saying that to God, because I was holding on to my plan, and I didn't want him to shut the door on some of the things that I wanted to happen. And I was so fearful, like, oh my God, what if that's not my plan? God's going to shut the door. I don't want to pray that, because then that door's shut. And it's like, I told him that. I told God that, and was like, that's what I'm scared of. I'm praying to you, and I'm scared to tell you to do that, because truthfully, I am scared for you to shut that door. Even though I know your plan is better, my plan is still in the back of my head, and I'm so scared for you to shut that door. So please help me remain trusting in you, that door needs to be shut for a reason. Like, I just feel like it all comes down to honesty. God is already all-knowing, and when you open your mind and you share those extremely vulnerable thoughts with him, it allows you to trust him more. Because now I've told God what I want in my life. I've told him that I'm scared to trust in his plan, because I'm so scared that it's not my plan. And I feel that he now knows every single thought I'm feeling about the situation, that I truly can give it to him. And I was able to ultimately, at the end of that conversation, be like, I do want you to shut every door that's not for me, because I've realized that through this prayer, you do know what's best. I'm not sure if this is making sense.
No, it does. Complete sense.
And I often feel like, I'm going to read a scripture for you guys real quick, and I've read this to you guys before. It's one of my favorite scriptures, but I've never really broke down what the words mean in it. And I feel like after having these realizations of, like, how important it is to truly trust in him, this has a whole different meaning to me. And it's, trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. And I feel like a lot of us pray for God to make our path straight, and we're like, God, why aren't you giving me clarity? God, why haven't you answered my prayers? God, why isn't your plan better for me? And it's like, do you truly trust in the Lord? Like, that's trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Not 50%, not 75%, 100% I trust in you, God, because that is when he can answer your prayers. Like, when you are 100% fully surrendered. That's what that means. And it just was so eye-opening to me, because even in that prayer, I kept saying to him, like, shut the doors. But that's why it was so important for me to tell him, like, that's so hard for me to tell you. Because in order to trust in him with all of my heart, I needed him to know every thought that was coming through my mind. So I just feel like that trust becomes 10 times easier when you do fill him in on everything. But if you are holding a thought back, or you're still withholding these fears, like, you're never truly going to trust in him. God knows everything I've thought now. I can trust him. I laid it all on the table for him. It is now his plan. Let your will be done, God. I gave you everything I wanted. I told you everything I wanted. You know what I want. So if it's not your plan, I know you're not going to give me it. But at least I told you. At least I voiced it. And I think it's easier to surrender when you voiced it to him, because when you don't even tell God what you want, you're wondering, like, is that going to be God's plan? But it's like, well, I told him what I want. So if it's not his plan, I know he heard it. You know, like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I voiced it. He knows I want it. So if it is for me, I know he's going to give it to me. And it just allows me to trust in him more. And I wanted to bring up that quote just because I feel like we all hear that and we assume, like, oh yeah, I trust in you, God. But listen to the words in that. All of your heart. Submit your ways to him, and he will make your path straight. All of your ways, with all of your heart. It's not 50%.
And lean not on your own understanding. I think so much of our world is like trying to understand everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, am I going to have this partner? Am I going to meet a guy who matches all of the boxes that I want? I'm leaning on my own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that we're not supposed to understand. That's what faith is truly trusting and not knowing.
And not being able to see.
Mm-hmm.
We can't see 10 years down the line. We can't see God working right now. We cannot see him standing in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what blind faith is.
Yeah. I also want to emphasize that is one of many scriptures where God is telling us to trust in him.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
To reaffirm your belief of why you should trust in him, he tells us over and over and over again to trust in him.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going on this blind assumption that God has the best plan for us. He told us he has the best plans for us. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. He tells us directly, take his word for it and trust in that.
Boom.
Boom.
Amen.
And the last thing that there's a lot on my mind today, but the last thing that I really want to leave you with is to shift your viewpoint of the world. A friend said to me, I had a conversation with the other day about God. I'm dripping down my back.
Sweating.
But a friend painted his view of the world to me with God, and he said, I view the world as a red carpet. This path that I am on, it is the red carpet that God is providing me. It's just unrolling and unrolling. So whatever step I'm taking, I am walking on a red carpet. Instead of viewing it as like this is a negative path I'm going down, it is a red carpet that God has given me. And another scripture that just backs that up is, but you are chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. We are royalty in God's eyes. Live your life like you are. Walk down that red carpet. View everything as that red carpet leading up to his kingdom. And you will start to see so much good in your life. I just feel like that's a beautiful way to embrace the bad. Even like when you think it's bad, it's not when you're on the red carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just like loved how he said that. I was like, that's such a great perspective.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
So I want to leave you on that too. Walk along this red carpet of life.
Strut like you mean it.
Seriously,
Free
strut
your
down the
mind.
red carpet. Strut
Free your
without a
mind.
worry in your mind.
It's not enough just to feel it. Come on. Come on.
So I know we gave you guys, like interrupting you, Thierry.
I want to watch that movie.
So I know we gave you guys a lot of food for thought in this episode, but this is a conversation that is never ending.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we are constantly growing in. I could have 10 more thoughts, 10 different thoughts. I could rebuke all of these thoughts that I just had next week because I have a new realization with God. But this is where we both are right now in our journey with prayer and how we feel in particularly surrendering to him. I think it'd be cool to do an episode on EK and surrendering to him because I have a lot of thoughts on like our path in EK and also with God. So if that's something you guys are interested in, we'll definitely share more of that. But this is always, as we're saying, an ongoing conversation that we are going to bring to the table with you guys. So just take a time to digest everything we just said. Take notes if you need to. Pause the episode. Come back at a different time if you need to. We spit out a lot of you, but it really was flowing.
Yeah, like if you're listening and you're feeling inclined to like go pray in the middle of the episode, like don't finish the episode. Stop what you're doing, and in that moment, that's God calling on you also to like take the time and talk to him. Like let that just happen naturally and organically. Don't try and plan like the perfect time, and just let it come however it can, honestly. So one thing that I know that God has literally told me, like he has made it abundantly clear, and he told both of us that we needed to come on here and tell you. So I'm going to let Isabel do it, but for real, like this is from God's lips. No. From God's mouth to our ears, from our lips to you.
From God's mouth to our ears, from our... Wait.
Just what I said. From God's mouth to our ears. From our mouth to your ears.
I feel EK is so a part of God's plan and No Sugar is so a part of God's plan, he would want our message to be heard. Now, I'm sorry if that's not the plan, God.
Nobody told me.
But he told us. So please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share this video, follow us on Instagram, comment, just interact with us, help share the word of No Sugar, help share the word of God, truly, because I feel a relationship with God can be difficult, and that's why a conversation needs to be so open and honest about it. So please share this with a friend who is on their journey with Christ and needs to grow in it, or may need to hear it. You never know who needs to hear it. I feel like this is a conversation someone always needs to hear, whether or not you realize it. So, yeah.
And follow us on TikTok at Everything Krause. Follow us on Instagram at Everything Krause, at No Sugar Pod. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We are trying to get to 100 subscribers. We're at 94, so subscribe. Hit that, like, just subscribe. Like, you just get notified when we post, basically.
Yeah.
So, like once on Tuesday, you get notified. So, not that bad. You just know when we posted a video. Like, God forbid. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode. If anyone ever has any questions or just wants to have an open conversation about something like this, a similar topic, or just, you know, maybe some guidance from us, I do feel like as followers of Christ, it's also our job to be a sounding board for other people. Not that we are all knowing and have every answer, but I think sometimes it's just important to be able to have open conversations with people, because I'm lucky enough to have them with Isabel and other people in my family and my boyfriend to kind of bounce these ideas off of. So when you have a conversation with someone, I think it also helps to enlighten your mind more, to be able to go into that conversation with God a little more open-hearted as well.
And sometimes God will answer you through other people. Sometimes he will give me the words to tell you, to bring you peace.
Exactly. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Take it however you need it to. Break it down. Whatever feels good for you. This is your personal journey, and we are just here to share our journeys with you as well. So we hope you have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you next time.